This is Billy Kay with the final episode of the complete Caledonian Imbiber, Programme 6, Homage to Catalunya, Aragon and Arbikie.
Gebringe me a pint of wine and fare it in a silver tasse, that I may drink before I go a service stay, my bonny lassie.
Here we are in the small Catalan village of San Jaume ses Oliveres, St James of the Olives, and we're in Bodega La Pamelita. It all started thanks to an addiction to red bubbles. I couldn't find any here in Spain, so I thought, well, I'll make my own. Because I love it. It's a passion, I guess.
We're in the Cooperativa de San Gregorio in the village of Cervera la Cañada, which is the village just down from where I have most of my vineyard. And I've been making wine for the last 14 years here.
And you've got the name of your company, El Escocés Volante, the Flying Scot. And the logo there, at first I wondered if it was a stag's head, but no, it's old Grenache backing.
They're the old vines, yes, that I worked in the logo there. It's nice, it's very proud to have your company's name on the side of the barrels.
Welcome to the Arbikie distillery, looking out towards Lunan Bay, so we're just north of Arbroath and just south of Montrose. In farming territory, as the Stirlings are farmers and have been farmers since the 1660s. My job is to go and sell our own family-made malt whisky around the world. Couldn't be more proud or more happy with that. We're very lucky people, to be quite honest.
Ian Stirling, owner of Arbikie Distillery, and flying Scottish winemakers Pamela Geddes and Norrel Robertson, who make wine in South Africa, Chile and at home in Spain, where Norrel took me to one of his remote hilltop vineyards.
We're about 920 metres above sea level. We're in the middle of the Iberian mountain system in Aragon.
The first thing that strikes you is the perfume of... Is it thyme?
It's wild mountain thyme, but you also get a bit of rosemary and a few other herbs here as well. I mean, it's low rainfall, there's not much that grows here. Almonds, vines, it's what we describe as Monte Bajo, the smell, or what the French would call garrigue. It's that combination of wild mountain herbs, and it is quite startling that, as soon as you stop your car here, you get out of the car and it just fills your lungs. And it is something that punctuates the wine as well, just through transpiration of the grapes. They pick up the aromas from the herbs. It's got a bit of the kind of high plains drifter about it, I would say. It's a hard land to work in winter. I mean, we had some frost actually at the end of April, and it hammered a lot of the vineyards this year, and we got down to -7. Just gives you an idea how extreme the climate can be. So it's romantic, it's nice to make wine, but economic. Some years you can struggle a little bit because you will lose crop to both frost and to hail as well.
So you've lost...
I reckon 70% this year, which is quite a lot. But it's just something you need to suck up, and get on with it. In these kind of extreme mountain vineyards in Aragon, life is actually quite cruel sometimes.
And why did you plant vineyards in this? Almost like, it looks like a wilderness here.
I've been building up old vineyards for the last 10 or 15 years since I moved to Spain. But I came to Calatayud by accident, I guess. I was actually running winemaking projects for a British company back at the time. And then, really when I walked into some of these vineyards, I thought, wow, this is exceptional. It's something really special and a real privilege to make wine from these types of vineyards. So I kind of got hooked on Grenache, or what we call Garnacha here in Spain as a grape variety. And I now have about 20 parcels of old vineyards. So it's hard work, it's very remote, but it's ultimately very rewarding, the wines that we make, these old parcels here.
Pamela Geddes from Bridge of Allan worked in the whisky industry at home and the wine industry in Australia before realising her dream of living in Barcelona and making sparkling wine in her bodega in Penedés.
We're actually surrounded by over 15,000 bottles. This is Spain's smallest legal sparkling facility. To have a winery, I have to have permission for the Dio Vino Espumoso de Calidad, that is quality sparkling wine. So one of the regulations for Dio quality sparkling wine is I have to have 100 square metres of winery. I actually have 99.9, so I guess I must be the smallest legal, because there's lots and lots of tiny bodegas which people have kind of in their home. It's a real tradition here in the Penedés area for people to make cava.
Using traditional champagne methods, Pamela's hard work begins after she's made her base wine.
I bring the wine here, I would add sugar, and I would add a yeast culture that I would have prepared. My degree is microbiology, so preparing yeast cultures is something I enjoy doing. And what you want to end up with is probably about 1 million yeast cells per milliliter of culture.
1 million yeast cells?
1 million yeast cells per mil, so there's about 750 million in one bottle. These yeast have to ferment the sugar that we've added to the base wine. From this they produce the carbon dioxide, the bubbles, and then they also produce a bit more alcohol. We mix together the sugar, the yeast, the wine, and bottle it into a heavyweight bottle, and we top it with a little plastic bidule and then a crown seal. Three clicks and that's it.
The secondary fermentation takes place in the bottle, and then the wine sleeps for over 9 months.
If we take this bottle out of the rack, we see it's cloudy. All the yeast has settled down onto the bottom, but to move it, it all goes back into suspension.
You're talking about pink clouds here, because this is a rosé.
Yeah. So what we're going to have to do is shake all that down, because no one's going to buy wine looking like that.
Remouage, or riddling the wine to get the sediment down to the neck of the bottle, is the next stage, followed by freezing the sediment plug and then ejecting or disgorging it from the bottle.
This is one I did earlier, and you'll see in the light,
clear,
it's beautifully
yeah.
clear.
But instead of cloudy pink, it's almost peachy pink.
Yes.
Œil de perdrix. Partridge eye, the French call that colour sometimes. And it's crystal clear. With just a wee pink sediment at the bottom. So that's ready to disgorge now.
That's ready for disgorging. I take the bottle, I do it upright. There's a little frozen plug in the neck of the bottle with a special disgorging tool to take the beer bottle cap off the bottle. I flick the cap off. The pressure in the bottle pushes the frozen plug out, and all going well, the rest of the wine stays in there. I love disgorging. I'm away in a different world, a bit of a sniff of the carbon dioxide. I don't know what it is, but it's good. Yes. I'm in my own world when I'm doing that. Yeah. Every bottle is unique, which I think is a lovely thing about Cava. Yeah. No one else has that bottle in the world.
And even more unique because it's made by a Scottish winemaker.
Well, yes. So each bottle I think I do touch at least 8 times in its life as it comes through the different processes, the stacking, the remouage, the disgorge, the cork, the muzzle, the washing, the drying and the labelling. Then it's ready to get out there and hopefully enjoyed by the final consumer.
And we'll taste wine from the 2 Scottish winemakers in Iberia who became friends when Pamela worked in Calatayud. In the hills nearby, Norrel drove me up to another parcel of his beloved old vine Garnacha.
It's kind of considered the Pinot Noir of the south to a lot of people, and it does have that kind of sensuality and the same sort of intrigue that you get from Pinot Noir. It's got a real kind of myriad of flavours to me. This is very much the cradle of Garnacha. This is where Garnacha was born in this part of the world, in Spain. So when a Frenchman tells you that Grenache is a French variety, it's not a French variety, it's actually a Spanish variety that was born in the Iberian mountain system, then taken up to France by the Romans originally. Very poor soil, very low yields, and this severe climate. Warm temperatures during the day, and then very cold temperatures during the night. Yeah. So what that means is that, you know, we get wines that are quite alcoholic, but at the same time very, very fresh, which is what I want to achieve from the Garnacha grapes, if you like.
You're giving me a druth, actually, just talking about these wines.
Well, we're going to drive down and taste some wines in a minute, yes. So we'll hopefully quench your thirst a wee bit.
Good.
The first wine we're looking at is La Rosita. And even already, the lovely wild strawberry nose is coming off. And it has that lovely, slightly nuggety smell from the thyme on leaves. It's quite creamy. And maybe some rosehip.
I love that, just that delicate pinky peach colour that it's got. Drier than most rosés.
It's quite dry. It's under the Brut classifications.
This would go well with food, in fact, because it's dry.
Quite often, if I'm showing it here at the winery, my preferred dish is a little piece of Scottish smoked salmon with a touch of horseradish sauce, and the fruit and the smokiness balance it out perfectly.
Gorgeous, yeah.
So the mondongo refers to everything inside the pig that's used to make sausages, whether it's longaniza or chorizo or morcilla, the black pudding. And the wine El Mondongo is a blend of 5 different parcels of mine, okay? The concept was about using everything that you have available.
What are the varieties in it?
This is mainly Garnacha, and we have about 10 or 15% of Syrah and a little bit of some of these other varieties we mentioned, Moristel, Bobal and Garnacha Blanca, okay? So this has been in bottle for about a month. So this is 2015 Mondongo. When we were up in the vineyards and you opened the car door and we were blown away by that smell of wild mountain thyme. Now this is a wine for me that smells of very much of that Montebajo Garrigue character. That's what you're smelling.
It's an intriguing nose because you've got the fruit of the grapes, but you've got this overlay of several herbs and spices, is the way you describe them.
I'm very proud of this wine because it's not every year you can do this sort of thing where kind of get these flavours coming through into the glass, into the bottle.
One of only 355 masters of wine in the world, Norrel's skill as a winemaker is gaining an international reputation, with scores of 92, 93 and 94 in Robert Parker's influential Wine Advocate publication. But which foods do the wines match perfectly?
Ideally for me would be chorizo, pinchos morunos, like anything with spice and garlic at the same time works very, very well.
What about a steak pie on New Year's Day?
Well, you told me that's more of a claret combination, but I think, these would stand up to it, These wines for the festive period are pretty good, actually, because when you've got the kind of Christmas table where you have that kind of combination of lots of spices, whether it's clove or cinnamon, or these wines match very, very well in that respect. Yeah. I think haggis is a classic. We tasted some of these wines that do have that kind of white pepper spice, that black pepper spice. That with haggis goes fantastically well. And that's something that we do. We've done here for years now. Is we actually make our own haggis, which is quite tough because actually trying to get the sheep's stomach is quite tough in Spain. That's the hardest thing to do. But everything else you can get quite easily. So we make our own, and then we'll ask people to bring different bottles of wine around. And Garnacha, well, my Garnacha always kind of wins over everybody else, I think, with the haggis combination. So.
The first La Pamelita, when I was working in Chile, the people are very respectful and they would call me Señorita Pamela. That sounded an awful mouthful. So luckily I became La Pamelita, which is a lot more user-friendly name to have. Exactly. A little term of endearment. So La Pamelita was the name I decided to put on my own sparkling red. My sister had a little girl called Rosie. So La Rosita is for wee Rosie. So by then I had 2 wines, still not hugely commercial. And in 2005 I made a brilliant Garnacha and a good Shiraz. And I thought I'm going to start my own red wine just to try to get my company up and running a bit more. So we have La Pamelita, we have La Rosita. I had to find a name for my red wine. My brother is called Gordon. So I call the wine El Gordito, but the El Gordito really means the wee fat one. Gordon is not wee or fat, but I call him Gord, so it worked quite well that he's El Gordito.
Is he quite proud to be El Gordito?
Proud. He's very proud to be El Gordito.
But being a distinguished wine expert doesn't stop you being sent up by other family members.
I used to get my little nephew Jamie. One day I caught him with his glass of iron brew, swilling it around and making funny faces and saying, "Look at me, I'm like Auntie Pamela."
But what's it like blending in with the locals in Catalunya and Spain? Norrel, for example, is well kent for the distinctive names and labels on his wines.
We got into a little bit of trouble here because we have one variety which is called Viognier, which is actually a French variety, and it's
from
not
the Rhone.
From the Rhone. It's not actually permitted in any of the denominations in Aragon, and we couldn't mention it on the label. But one of the wines I have is called Dos Dedos de Frente, okay, which means 2 fingers of forehead. That was really a homage to the local authorities here that wouldn't let us mention Viognier. The wine is actually a blend of Syrah and Viognier. Dos dedos de frente, literally in English it means 2 fingers of forehead, or a little bit of intelligence, you know. So it was a kind of a way of kind of sticking 2 fingers up to the local authorities. Anyways, life's too short to, you know, name wines after castles or dukes or duchesses, so we try and kind of rope in a little bit of personal experience and what's happened to us along the way with the wines.
Being a Scots person here in Catalunya is great. I do play on that. Definitely there is a bond between Scotland and Catalunya, and it does get me out of tricky situations.
My company's called El Escocés Volante, which means the Flying Scotsman. To be grammatically more correct, we should have called the company El Escocés Volador, but I actually, when I was making wine in the Loire Valley in France in 2000, I had a car accident. And the local people called me l'Écossais Volant because they thought I was driving too quickly, probably, when I had my accident. So when I moved to Spain and it came to giving my company name, because I travelled around so much, the word volante also means steering wheel in Spanish. So for me, it was kind of a nice linking to call my company Escocés Volante. So it means Flying Scotsman, but it also means the steering wheel as well. So it kind of links in with my kind of work, because I still drive about 75,000 kilometres a year in Spain.
And from Aragon to Arbikie, all are intensely aware of the importance of their Scottish roots in marketing their drinks. Norrel's logo is based on the Robertson clan crest, while Pamela's company is named after her grandfather, James Lobban Geddes.
And I think the Lobban Sparkling Shiraz is also going well with that, using a Scottish name. There is on the label the year 1314. Could have been that I started the project in 2013 and it was finished in 2014, or it could be for the Battle of Bannockburn. Who's to say?
We're very lucky to be very close to Arbroath. We were all born in Arbroath, so very proud of that part of the world. We know the Declaration of Arbroath from 1320. We're very fortunate to be able to release products that will celebrate the anniversary in 2020. People get that, particularly in America, but also elsewhere. You know, the links between the American Declaration of Independence and the Arbroath one.
It's a combination between the Robertson crest and my company logo, okay? So you have the belt, and then in the centre you have the 3 old vines. I was actually tempted to just go with the Robertson crest, but I thought, you know, I don't want to get into any legal issues with the clan or whatever, and it's something that's used a lot. So it's kind of a derivation on a clan symbol.
Well, here's the Caledonian.
Yeah, exactly, Caledonian.
Slange.
And the taste lingers long. Norrel hails from Forfar, and nearby on the coast of Angus, the Stirling brothers have gone back to the future to create a farm distillery which is part of a Scottish spirits revolution in recent years, involving gin, vodka and single malt whisky. Distillers Christian Antonio Perez, Kirsty Black and Ian Stirling.
We're very fortunate with Arbikie because we were working on a name for the business, and David, who lives in America, called me up and he goes, "You'll never believe this. Arbikie, the farm, had a distillery in 1794. So instead of looking for a name, we already had a name, Arbikie, a real place, a farm, and a location that looks out at Lunan Bay, one of the most spectacular beaches anywhere, let alone Scotland. So this is where we are today, and we're looking forward to talking you through what we're doing and how the process works with Kirsty.
My name is Kirsty Black, and this is Arbikie Distillery.
How did you get this gig?
So I was very, very lucky, basically. I studied at Heriot-Watt University at the International Centre of Brewing and Distilling and did a master's there.
Yeah.
And it was then that Ian Stirling approached the university and asked for a student to work on a master's project developing gin. And I was selected, and then after that they went on to offer me the job of coming to this empty shed and turning it into a distillery.
What a great project to get in,
definitely.
in from the beginning. And now there are these shining silver metal tanks, and there's the traditional whisky stills. What are they doing in these whisky stills at the moment?
Today, there's distilling. The wash still is running at the moment.
It was an official distillery because it was a farm and it's on the map. The distillery is named there. But I'd imagine in most farms in Scotland, the farm workers will have made their own spirit for themselves. Before whisky was regulated, many of the farms will have had distilleries or the capacity to do that, but it's amazing to recreate something that's already been there in the past. And as a historian myself, I get really excited about that stuff, so you can probably hear that in my voice.
Do you feel as if you're reviving an ancient tradition in some ways?
Absolutely, because our family have farmed since before 1660, so we're farming, we're distilling, and that's what's unique about Arbikie, is that we're growing everything that we distill. So we are reviving farming distillery, recreating that link between growing and distilling, which has probably become quite detached. Because outside the window here, you can see potatoes growing that we make our vodka with. You've got wheat there that we're making Axe gin with, and you've got barley, which we'll make into our own whiskey. So you've got total provenance, and you can see it out the window.
At the moment, what we have here is our potato vodka. The potato varieties involved with the vodka are Cultra, King Edward's, and Maris Piper. They all have different characteristics, and it's like making wine. The Cultra has a very green sort of characteristic. Maris Piper tends to be a bit more creamy. King Edward's just allows for a greater amount of starch, so that starch actually gets converted into sugar later on. And they're bottled 43% alcohol. You know, you have that feeling at the same time from your tongue to your belly. So you are actually tasting with your belly.
So it's a full body experience.
A full body experience.
Amazing. Rich flavour. I'm convincing myself that I can taste tatties in it, but I'm not sure.
I'm sure you can.
The wheat and the potatoes we use to make the vodkas, but it's those vodkas that we go on to use to make the gin. So gin's in essence a flavoured vodka, but with juniper in it. Yeah,
Right.
That's what makes it different. So both our gins have juniper and some of the classic botanicals like coriander, licorice, orris root and things, but then we add some specific ones that are local to this area.
You rise out of the sea in Lunan Bay, up to the beach and up to the farm. So you have sea kelp from the sea, Caroline thistle you can forage from the beach, and blaeberries that you could forage from the land.
So the first one we use is a seaweed called kelp.
This is dried.
Yes. So then the next one we use is from the dunes here. This is a thistle called Caroline thistle. So it goes wild all over Scotland. This is the root of it, and it's very fragrant.
And it's the roots of a thistle.
Yeah. So we do go a bit here in the farm, which the farmers hate, because they spend their life trying to get rid of thistles.
Is that right?
And we're now let's grow them.
Is that an important part of your work, the discovery of ingredients to go into the drinks?
Yes. I was originally a plant scientist. That's what I studied originally, and I've always been interested in the plants that are used in Scotland and that were always eaten historically here. The third botanical in our Kirsty's gin is blaeberries. They're the Scottish blueberry. So these are dried ones we've got here because of the season. Yeah, they're just very small, wild. So they grow all over the woods and heath moorlands of Scotland.
They've got a distinctive fruity flavour.
Yeah.
The gin that we're going to pour you right now is actually Kirsty's gin, which is basically made with the potato vodka. It has Caroline thistle, which is a root, and that particular root brings a beautiful floral character, almost like violets, into the gin. So you actually get an explosion in your mouth of flavors and aromas.
It's the freshness of the scent and the flavour too. You get a vivacity.
It's Kirsty's gin.
Your gin?
Yeah. Which is made
What's
out
it
of...
feel like to have a drink named after you?
Well, it's obviously an honour.
Yeah.
But, hey, I find it quite embarrassing.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you never swan into a bar and say,
No,
I'd like
I don't like the attention of that.
Do you never drop a hint that you are the Kirsty?
No.
You do so.
Yeah.
I think I would if it was Billy's gin. But you're too modest for that. We're going to have to wait a wee bit longer to taste Arbikie malt whisky, but it'll be worth it. Christian worked in the wine industry in Chile, New Zealand and California, and will use the knowledge gained to experiment with maturing and finishing the whisky in different wine casks.
We are looking at releasing a 14-year-old Arbikie, so we'll have a few years to wait. Lunan Bay, the North Sea and the winds coming across from Denmark and elsewhere will have a major impact on our Scotch. The casks outside the window are sitting weathering away, getting that North Sea flavour coming in.
Is the finish that important for the flavour that goes in the bottle, the finish of the barrel?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we're looking at, it's not only traditional, but also originality and embracing wine barrels, because whiskeys used to be aged in wine barrels of all kinds until 1933, I think, when a bourbon barrel was introduced. Yes. We're going to start using some Tokai barrels. It's a bit softer than sherry,
I love Tokai. They've got a sweet citric flavour, I
Sure.
think, like candied orange or orange peel in the flavour. That would be fascinating. I'd love to taste a whiskey matured in
me too.
a Tokai. So, how many years will that be before we can taste that?
Well, who knows? I think for us, we're going to be probably tasting it every year. But for the public, we're looking at over 10 years.
Well, I might get a taste.
But who knows? My boss may say, hey, why don't we do a special release?
Yeah. The other national drink of Scotland was Bordeaux red wine, claret.
Sure.
So that'd be an interesting historic one to go for.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Oh, the marriage of both noble liquids with a claim to be Scotland's national drink, one to savour in the future. And there's a historic precedent too for the Hungarian Tokai, which was sold across Europe in the 17th century by a brother Scot called Robert Porcius, one of the wealthiest men in Poland at the time. I hope you've enjoyed being a complete Caledonian Imbiber. I'll leave you with Rod Patterson singing a song collected by Robert Burns about a Spanish wine popular in Scotland lang syne, and with the voices of our Scottish winemakers in Spain.
My job is a luxury in a lot of respects, because every day is different. One day I can be in the vineyard, next day I can be in the winery, next day I can be in Chile or South America. So there's very few professions in the world where you have that type of luxury.
I think I actually have to support my addiction for carbon dioxide, for bubbles. So I work vintage. I work at Catalunya, one of the big Cava places, and I work there really as a winemaking assistant. I just love the buzz of vintage. And maybe the bubbles.
With all these different things going on, you must have established a reputation then as a winemaker.
Well, I think I'm quite well known. As that crazy Scottish person. I guess quite a few people know my work and me.
To this day, it's the lovely thing about wine. It's a seasonal product. Every vintage is different, and in every harvest you have different challenges, and it's a physical thing and it's a mental thing, and it's very rare in any profession you get to combine those two things at the same time. So it really is a passion that you develop in that sense, and I think once you start to make wine, it becomes very addictive, if you like.
Should all acquaintance be forgot and never thought upon, let's hae a walk to Malaga for old lang syne, for old lang syne, my jo, for old lang syne. Let's hae a walk to Malaga.